So the headline feature for Season 8 is players being able to join the battle for the Sea of Thieves. So we have two factions, the Guardians of Fortune and the Servants of the Flame. Players can pledge their allegiance to one of these two factions and then do ship combat on demand against the rival faction.
All right, here we go.
In the Sea of Thieves sandbox today, players can join a crew, they can sail the open seas, and eventually they might find another ship on the horizon, and then
so it's really quick.
Join a crew.
Hold on. Andrew Preston, the lead designer this season, really cool, hardworking guy. I talked to him a bunch leading into this season, so bounce some ideas back and forth off each other. Cool dude, put a ton of work into this. So yeah, he's kind of the one that spearheaded the whole Season 8 thing, so good on him, and I hope it's sweet.
Today, players can join a crew, they can sail the open seas, and eventually they might find another ship on the horizon. And then when they go to engage in ship combat with that crew, they might not be up for it. With Season 8, we wanted to add a predictable way for players to get ship combat on demand against another crew that are up for the fight.
We know how exciting ship versus ship combat is in our game. We understand that it's kind of a unique part of our game that players don't get to experience elsewhere.
It felt like a perfect opportunity for Season 8 to bring that to players on demand and create those magical moments for players whenever they choose to have that experience.
We have two factions that players can pledge their allegiance to. The first is the Guardians of Fortune, and the second faction we have is the Servants of the Flame.
Tucked. Waiting.
The Guardians of Fortune aligned with the Pirate Lord and include Belle and Merrick and all the characters that are seen as the positive side of the pirate's life.
The counterfaction to that is the Servants of the Flame, who is headed up, of course, by Captain Flameheart.
So when Season 8 launches, players will be able to board their ship, and in the captain's cabin of their ship, there'll be this new object. It's called the Hourglass of Fate.
As a crew, you can go up to that.
So if you see that right there, it has your actual matchmaking time. So these guys are playing as the Athena. What are they called? Athena's Fortune? Is that what they call them? So yeah, they're on the Athena faction. The matchmaking time, it lets you know less than a minute. Means there's people waiting to be invaded or whatever. Or they, so we got the, so it actually tells you right here too. I didn't see that. Change faction, similar matchmaking time. So I think it's going to give you probably some sort of idea here on Guardians of Fortune. It's going to give you some sort of idea here if you want to swap it up or not. If you want to wait, keep grinding your initial faction, or if you want to just play on the other side.
Rotate it to represent the faction of your choice. You vote on this hourglass to represent that faction, which opts you in to the battle for the Sea of Thieves.
We didn't want to change the way Sea of Thieves plays for players that don't want to partake in PvP combat. This is purely an opt-in mechanic to join the battle and for players to have ship combat on demand.
When you've joined the fight, you've got two options in how you want to progress for the factions. So the first and main way is the ship combat on demand, and that will spawn you into ship combat against that rival crew. Sinking them will earn you allegiance, which is how you.
The allegiance is their new progression system.
With our new factions and earn the new cosmetics and rewards.
The second core way that players can play Season 8 is they can join a faction and then they can amass faction treasure on their ship. And this means that when a rival faction does hunt them, if they defend their ship with honor and sink them, they will earn more allegiance for defending their ship.
So basically, chat, what that is you can loot haul now, right? Like you can just play normal. Like if you like the PvE in this game, or you want to be doing skull forts, or you want to be doing treasure missions or merchant missions or whatever you're doing, you can do that with your faction picked, and you can just play. And then over time, I think there's some sort of buffer. I don't know what the time is. But like you won't just be getting attacked constantly. I think there's some sort of internal timer. I don't know that for sure. But yeah, you can just play, loot haul, and defend your loot. So the loser, chat, just to reiterate for those of you that don't know. So let's say you're a player that's defending like that and you're doing your loot haul. If they invade you, you can kill them and win your fight, and they get booted off the server. So they can't like come back after you. It's like people that know you have a lot of loot and stuff like that, they can't just like come back and grief you. Like they'll have to leave the server and then you can just keep playing.
Because of all the faction treasure they protected.
Hunting another crew is one of the most spectacular moments that we've ever added to Sea of Thieves. You unfurl the war map, throw the daggers in, and you vote to dive. And as soon as you are in open water, the bow of your ship will dive beneath the waves. You'll get the rush of water past you. And from that point, you're then gliding through channels beneath the waves in the hunt for your rival faction crew.
It was really interesting exploring that bottom of the ocean because we've scraped the surface of it with the shrines in the past. We'd like to imagine what is that sort of dead space in between these, places of actual playable space. So we've got parts that are very coral laden, some are rocky. We've also got some ancient civilization architecture and big.
I'm sure there's gonna be some
battlefields
hints
full
and
of
stuff in
wrecks.
here
I
too.
went with a very in utero kind of treatment there, and I've used some rain sounds. You got the sound of the rain when you're under a tree or under a roof. So I just low passed out, which means I would cut all the high frequency of that just to keep,
Yeah, this is like the load screen
crispy,
basically.
They're kind of almost soothing, limbo-esque kind of sonics. It's a little bit different from what we're normally doing in Sea of Thieves.
So as far as I know, I just saw a question. Pretty sure that you have a cooldown. You don't just get invaded constantly. I don't think it's long, but I don't think it's you're not just gonna get spammed. D Brown, what's up, man?
Your crew gets put into a matchmaking queue. There's separate queues for factions and different ship sizes. And then sloops are divided into two as well, so you get 2-player sloops versus single-player sloops. It's a bit of an unfair match.
Every crew is assigned a skill rating, and we then look for the closest matches in terms of skill. After every match, we record whether it was a win or a loss, and the relative skill difference between the two different crews, and that will determine a new skill rating.
So I personally would like to know a little bit more about the skill rating. I guess there's some ways that people are probably going to abuse that, but I don't really want to talk too much about that. I would like to know what the brackets are. Is the skill rating super close, or is it mildly close? You know what I'm saying? The brackets I feel like need to be big. Yeah, that's kind of what I'm thinking too. I feel like it needs to be set into quarters. Essentially, chat, like I said, I don't mind fighting good players because, that's most likely what's going to happen, after whatever time the matchmaking happens. But I also don't want to be fighting the same people every time. I don't want to be fighting the same 10 crews every time. That to me is going to get a little bit tiresome. But I like to fight some new people. But we'll see. We'll see what they do with it.
Straight kills death ratio doesn't actually mean you're winning fights, right? A player that's really good on cannons at sinking other ships or really good on the wheel or something isn't going to get those player kills. So at the moment, yeah, it's purely done on wins and losses in those battles. That affects your skill rating over time, and your crew skill is then the average of all your players' skills, and that's what we use to match them.
And then once we found you an opponent, your ship bursts out of the waves and you can see the other ship in front of you.
That's pretty
The
sweet.
best moment is you're underwater and your ship is accelerating and you can just feel that power, and you have your ship going just in the air, and
yeah, it's pretty
crashing
badass.
back on the waves. You just feel like a god at that point. It just feels so right.
But don't be emoting when you jump out of the water,
My favourite
chat.
piece of music that I've written for Season 8 is the battle music. Just trying to make the player feel like, oh yeah, I've just rocked up, I'm going to end.
Do they have music
other
playing during the
ship.
whole fight?
Or,
That's
the
sick, I
ship
hope. I
itself,
hope they do.
you're just sailing along the sea, doing your own thing. And then suddenly someone
Time out. Do they have music playing the whole time? I hope so. That'd be awesome. Sick.
rocks up next to you and you're like, oh crap.
This kill or be killed. If players do try to
that's
flee
dope.
the combat area, the hourglass of fate starts to become unstable and it starts to kind of crack and split.
Essentially, everything's tied to the hourglass, and you can tell something's going horribly wrong. If you keep going into that direction, you got a sound for when you're reaching the inner bound that tells you you shouldn't go further.
And eventually, if you go too far, the hourglass of fate will blow up and your ship will automatically sink. And it will award the other crew a win and you a loss. That was a really important point for us. We want to have a clear winner and a clear loser of combat, and then to separate the two crews after the combat is drawn to a conclusion. The losing crew will actually move to a new server and get migrated away
Best,
from the
yeah,
winning team.
perfect.
Every time you sink a ship in Season 8, you will get a bump of allegiance towards your faction. That's immediately granted. But we also wanted to kind of add this risk-reward loop into continuing to push for higher streaks and continue to push for further reward. So as you sink ships, value will be added to the Hourglass of Fate that is aboard your ship, and you'll be able to go over to the Hourglass and look at the card above it. You'll be able to see exactly what you're on, and that will be earned for the number of ships you sunk, and also you will get more the higher the streak you are on. But the crucial thing about the Hourglass of Fate and the value that's stored inside it is you don't actually earn that until you sail back to an outpost to leave the fight.
And so we really encourage us players to run the gauntlet, sink as many back-to-back ships as they can, because the more back-to-back ships they sink, the greater the rewards will be.
Once a ship or a crew has got enough kills in a row and they get to a 4 streak for their faction, they become a champion for their faction, and that then allows a new option to appear on the war map. This new option allows them to face off against bigger ships than their own.
For other players on the server who are
So I don't know this. So say you get to be a champion as a sloop, right? And you want to push to play against like a brig or a galleon. Do they also have to be a championship? Or can you just push higher? It doesn't matter. Like you could fight a fresh brig or a fresh galleon. I'm not sure. We'll find out.
members of the rival faction, your location essentially gets broadcast. So if they sink you, or if you as a player sink another rival faction ship that's also a champion, you'll get extra rewards, you'll get extra allegiance, there'll be extra gold in the form of Sands of Fate when you leave the faction, extra reputation rewards as well for those players that are playing Emissary play as well. We've got these brand.
So basically what that just said, which is what I think is cool, is if you are playing, like say I'm playing on the Reaper, and then there's a Athena allegiance ship on that server, it marks them if they're a champion, if they're a champion. They will be on your map, and you actually do get rewards for hunting them down. I said this in my other video, but I think essentially that they don't really mention. I think essentially that almost counts as a bounty hunter system, because that's a ship that's been terrorizing a little bit and winning some fights. You know what I'm saying? So now you can be like, oh, here we go. Let's go bounty hunt these dudes on the server and go kill them that way.
New figurehead effects on the ship, and as the player's streak increases, these effects essentially wrap the ship, and once you reach faction champion, that's when they're at their brightest. So everyone who's looking over the horizon with a spyglass will be able to see you. You know, you're on a very high streak, and you know, you're not to be trifled with.
When a player joins...
So did you guys see that? Like when you win games in a row, your ship lights up more, like on the bowsprit, and it has like that. It has like these glowing things on it. So like as you keep winning, this gets bigger. You get to like your champion status.
And you know, you're not to be trifled with.
When a player joins a faction and they join the battle for the Sea of Thieves, they don't have to go and hunt other rival faction crews. They can go and enjoy Sea of Thieves as they always have done, doing world events, doing quests, and amassing faction treasure aboard their ship. As a result of them being in the fight, other rival factions can actually invade them at any point, and they can defend their ship with honor. So the more faction treasure a crew amasses, the more allegiance they will earn for successfully defending their ship.
Earning allegiance will grow your level within those factions. Players can choose to level up purely in the Guardians of Fortune or purely in the Servants of Flame, or you can do a bit of both and get rewards from either faction. We're not locking you into one particular way of play.
Once players have reached level 100...
Which is good. I think it's very important that they let you do both. I mean, let everyone experience all the content, you know?
For the Guardians of Fortune, and they're a pirate legend, they can get secret access to this extended area.
All right, so this might be somewhat spoilery, chat. I don't know if they're going to show the inside of this, but I would... look away if you do not want to see this on the video and you want to experience the first time. Maybe just mute it for a second or something.
Area of the Pirate Legend hideout. And for players that have reached level 100 for the Servants of the Flame and are also Reaper level 75, they can go to the Reaper's hideout and get access to the Reaper's lair deep below the Reaper's hideout.
When you reach level 100 in the Guardians of Fortune, you go down to the Pirate Legend hideout, as many players have done before, and speak to the Pirate Lord, and he will open a new door out of the back of the Athena's Fortune shipwreck that will show you into a new area of the Pirate Legends hideout. There you'll be amongst other legendary
is sweet.
pirates, drinking and taking part in tavern games. You'll meet new and returning NPCs. So one of the new ones is Samuel. He's a bard. His role with this faction
Samuel
is
the
as
bard?
their chronicler. And we're doing some really cool stuff with
The chronicler. That's new, right?
these chroniclers across both factions, in that they will constantly update players on the progress in the fight for the Sea of Thieves. We're tracking the win percentages across both factions, and we'll be representing that to players through the chroniclers in each of the hideouts. And then you can make your way to the back of the pirate
Wait.
across both factions. There you'll be amongst other legendary pirates.
win
drinking and
percentages?
taking part in tavern
He's
games.
talking about
You'll
the
meet new and
faction as a
returning
whole?
NPCs. So one of the new ones is Samuel. He's a bard. His role with this faction is as their chronicler. And we're
So I saw this before, chat. I mentioned it the other day. I'm going to remove my webcam for a second. There's a table here that has 2 Athenas on it and 3 Reapers. I'm wondering if you can actually see if that's representative of the server the same way that like emissaries are, or if that is just, you know, for looks, or maybe if one team is like winning more. I don't know. I'm unsure, but I'm curious to know.
doing some really cool stuff with these chroniclers across both factions, in that they will constantly update players on the progress in the fight for the Sea of Thieves. We're tracking the win percentages across both factions, and we'll be representing that to players through the chroniclers in each
Win
of the hideouts.
percentages,
And then
huh?
you can make your way to the back of the Pirate Legend hideout, where Bell and Merrick and even the Pirate Lord himself are waiting to grant you the blessing of Athena's fortune.
Taking part in the blessing of Athena's fortune will see you kind of shake hands, be face to face with the Pirate Lord before receiving the blessed ghostly form. So kind of creep up your arms and you'll unlock the
That's
ghost
cool.
curse. And this will allow players to represent themselves as a true legend of Athena's fortune.
So the blessing of Athena's fortune is something that Robin wrote, and it just makes you feel like this sense of camaraderie where you're singing all together with all of the pirates. The Pirate Lord, you hear Belle singing. Belle has a lovely voice, turns out. And so does Merrick, so does the Pirate Lord. So yeah, you just have a great time.
The Reaper's Lair is hidden below the Reaper's hideout. You'll descend in a lift into the belly of the island and explore a fiery, rich environment filled with new NPCs and characters.
Oh, that's
that are
cool.
all dedicated to Flameheart.
Rock and Stone?
In service of his goal to see the Sea of Thieves be taken over by his vision of the pirate's life.
Even before you see the first glimpse of this area, it's about the journey down into it, and you have this sort of story going on around you. And then as soon as you breach down into that area, this world just sort of opens up into this cavern with lava. It's such an epic feeling that we wanted to like lead with. The sense of power and the sense of like hidden power as well. Players have no idea what's been lurking off down here, and it's almost like you get a sense of like they're an army that's preparing for something.
We wanted to have a kind of tavern
This
area,
room's cool.
but we didn't want it to be just mirroring stuff
No, that
that's
looks
above
sick.
ground. Like, what would a Reaper's tavern look like? I thought the idea of like a grand hall and this kind of cultish secret club would be quite cool. to
Yeah,
see.
that's really cool.
They're all sitting around toasting to Flameheart. It's really like lending itself to that role play that we wanted to push in this environment as well.
We found it really important to make it so players don't get lost, to ease any frustrations. They are presented with a sightline of every location that's of importance. So from that entrance, they can see the Bonesmith, they can see the Chronicler, the Tavern.
Pretty sure I
It's all
saw a
very
box of
obvious and
wondrous
clear.
secrets up there.
Quite cool to see.
They are presented with a
On the
sightline
right.
of every location that's of importance. So
What's that up there on that lift right there? What is this? All right.
from that entrance, they can see the Bonesmith, they can see the Chronicler, the Tavern. It's all very obvious and clear, and with joins between them, rather than just straight routes.
I feel for characters, you have to find the few quirks that really brings it to life. For the skeletons, it's even
Oh, it's
more
got a little
important because
hand,
they don't have
little hand
all
on the
those
skull.
very familiar facial expressions we rely on to decide if this person is maybe friendly or not. Without even skin or, you know, eyeballs, how do you find that thing that makes them feel alive?
For the Reaper's Chronicler, you have someone that embodies a bit of the darker side. So we have almost this historian that's hunched over the desk and they're writing
Glasses
down
for no
what's
eyeballs?
going on, and whether or not it's truthful or not. We sort of maybe wanted to hint towards maybe, you know, this idea that historians might spin the truth in their favour.
The interesting bit about the Reaper's Lair is that it's mostly the audio team like doing it. So we've got John and Jamie, which are doing the Chronicler, which is pretty cool. It's got 2 heads. It's 2 different people, so they got their own personality, their different accent, and it's really cool. It gives it's bring back a lot of tone to those characters. And Katie's doing the bartender. Shadrack's doing the bonesmith. Again, it's completely different vibe, and I'm doing the emissary.
At the deepest point of the Reaper's Lair, you will emerge into this chasm that is taken up by the Tree of Rebirth, surrounded by the sap of that tree, and greeted by the voice of the Flame, who's a new NPC, whose sole purpose is to transform you into the ultimate vision of Flameheart's version of the pirate's life.
Taking part in the Ritual of the Flame will see players drink from the cursed chalice and transform into a skeleton.
We'd look through old Reaper work, previous cosmetics that we've provided for the Reapers. There were these weapons that we did that had this like gnarled wood motif. You're becoming a skeleton. It's almost like this like rebirth. So we kind of things slotted together and we thought, okay, it's like a tree of rebirth almost. And there's something quite sinister and weird and unreal about, you know, a tree being underground.
It was almost like a purposeful disconnect. How is this an evil place with this bright golden glow? It looks inviting, and I think that's the beauty in a lot of quote-unquote evil factions, is you can see the allure there. You can understand why someone might be tempted to that side. So it's not, you know, dark and evil and spooky. It's quite attractive sort of place.
These cutscenes are, you know, the biggest that we've done in Sea of Thieves, so we really have to do a lot of work and planning. We typically do something called previs or pre-visualization, where we kind of use this tool to kind of choreograph the scenes and figure out the timings and where the characters are going to be, what they're going to say, and it's for identifying the story beats of the cutscene itself. Once we've done our previs, we go to motion capture. Abby is our main motion capture actress for all of the characters that you actually see in games.
Having acted for Belle and a few of the other female characters, it can be quite tricky as an actor. You have a vision in your head of what you want. As an animator as well, you can get into your head a little bit too much, and you kind of have to clear your mind a little bit and let the performance flow naturally, because you do get a much better performance that way. It doesn't feel as forced. Once we've got our motion capture data, we then take that into Maya and clean up the animation that we've got, push poses to kind of really sell that performance, and then once we've got
all these new NPCs are so cool.
For the skeleton transform, we really wanted to achieve this feeling of sort of your skin really burning away and this power inside you from the
that Flameheart
of rebirth, that it's like burning your
shadow of Flameheart.
I've got like ramping up heartbeat that's coming there, and it's accelerating up to the point where, well, that's it, you're a skeleton, so there's no heartbeat, there's no life anymore. It stops there. So I've got those elements and some more abstract elements to kind of give that sensation of power as you
guys listen to the music. The music's so good.
As you're being transformed.
The really cool thing about the skeleton curse.
Oh, look at all that. I heard, chat, they have a ton of customization for these skeletons. Got a bucket. That's funny. Yeah, there's gonna be some wild looking ones. It's gonna be cool.
The skeleton curse is we're allowing players to customize elements of the curse. So when players visit the Bonesmith in the Reaper's Lair, they can change and customize their head, their torso, their legs, and even their bone color as well. So as players continue to play and they unlock more and more skeleton cosmetics, we're going to see all this really interesting variety.
Oh, it's got 2 heads.
Skeleton crews that are setting sail in the Sea of Thieves.
I think what I'm most excited to see is just how far players can build their streak. There's going to be that natural sense of competition between players. I think it's going to be really exciting to see what records players can set.
It will be good to see, are they
streaks
going to be good or bad? And it would be just great to see their reactions as well to the Athena's Blessing and the ritual.
2 ships fighting against each other with 2 crews who have very little idea what's going on is one of the most exciting experiences, and I can't wait for players to get more of that. I'm also really excited for how this will improve the lives of players who perhaps don't want to engage in PvP combat, because it pulls all of the players who want to PvP into a pool by themselves.
It's such a cool...
So the way he said that obviously means he's saying that people that want to be doing this mode are going to be doing it and probably not out hunting other people as much. They're not saying that you're immune to that happening. So I just wanted to clarify that, probably for him. I don't want to put words in his mouth, but it's not like you're not still going to get attacked if you're playing normally. I think that's just kind of the way that you know, it's almost like pulling people to arena, how they weren't in Adventure. It's going to kind of be the same way, but there'll still be plenty of fights and natural combat and all that stuff.
Addition to the Sea of Thieves sandbox, and I think it will change the way that I approach my sessions in Sea of Thieves, whether I'm doing kind of world events or doing other activities. I've now got this option to get into like a high octane combat scenario within the crew.
Sick. All right, that was sweet. Chat, I think it's gonna be badass. Yo, so that was the deep dive. I'm glad we got a chance to watch that. Yeah, pretty badass. So definitely waiting for tomorrow. Hey guys, thank you so much for watching the YouTube video today. On the way out, don't forget to follow the social media, my Twitter, my Instagram. If you've not already, please remember to hit the subscribe button on the YouTube channel. Thank you all very much. See you on the next video.